Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we'll be reviewing The Young Pope episodes 2 and 3. So last week, HBO threw a curveball at me. I think they released episode 2 early on a Monday. Kind of threw off my review schedule a bit, but that's alright, it's all good. We're going to do both episodes into one review, and we'll start with episode 2. So, as we open up, in the first scene, we get this couple and they're having sex, and I'm thinking, whoa, is that the Pope? But no, it's not the Pope. It's actually the wife of a Swiss Guard member. You know, the Swiss Guard are the, this is the, basically the guard for the Vatican, who protects the Pope. And it's a long history about the Swiss Guard. But, this particular woman, she seems to be a very devout Catholic. And her husband, who's the Swiss Guard member, seems concerned to some degree about her feelings for him. And she just seems, focused on her faith, more so than anything. So as we cut to the Pope is actually planning for his homily and concerned about what he's going to say to the people in his address. So we move on to the papal office, and the Pope is meeting with Sophia. And we get to learn that Sophia is the marketing director. As we learned from the previous episode, she's greatly concerned about the revenues being lost from the Pope not appearing or his image not being used, because they can use the Pope's image on coins, plates, t-shirts, and this is how they generate, a lot of money back to the Vatican. So she expresses her concern to the Pope, and she's telling the Pope, hey, you're a very young and handsome guy. And, basically, as a marketing director, she can just see dollar signs, So the Pope stops her and goes, well, where did you get your education? And, she's like, well, I attended Harvard, with pride, and, that response you get from a lot of Harvard graduates and these Ivy League types, so the Pope really starts to slam academia and the entire institution, saying it's all in decline. He just has this, this attitude like, you're not, towards Sophia, like, hey, you're not as smart as you think you are. He's very, insulting, in a sense, So he starts to go on to help her understand the advantages of being mysterious and inaccessible. And he mentions the success of, music groups like Daft Punk, who you never see what they look like, J.D. Salinger, Stanley Kubrick, all these mysterious, successful people who, then let their images be, seen, or you can hardly, see them. So he's kind of getting through to the marketing director, and she's starting to eat it up. She seems kind of like she's on board, with the Pope. So it kind of cuts to this next scene, and the scene kind of looks out of place. You start to see things you're probably, not accustomed to thinking about when you think about the clergy and the priests and the nuns. And you basically see these nuns playing soccer in their nun robes. And, you see this one cardinal. And he was in the first episode, older cardinal. He's smoking, and he looks like he shouldn't be smoking at all, but as he's smoking, in between taking puffs of his cigarette, they're actually, placing oxygen masks on him so he can breathe, So it's just these very, odd scenes, I think, for us, looking in, because, I think sometimes we forget that the clergy and the priests are, human beings, and they do all these things. We kind of just think of them as pious. So we move on to the Pope getting a gift from the ambassador of Australia, and it's a kangaroo. And and kangaroos can be a bit unpredictable and scary at times. And, so the Pope, as he opens this cage to where this kangaroo is, he seems quite comfortable, almost like he has some type of dominion or control over the kangaroo. And he tells the kangaroo to come out, and everyone is just kind of looking out in amazement. And, later from that scene, we get we get Sister Mary rather later, reflecting on that particular event and some that happened in the past, which she seemingly thought what the Pope was doing were miracles. And, as she's getting ready to explain one particular incident, the Pope stops her. He doesn't want to speak about it, so it was very interesting. And it's quite clear that Sister Mary believes, despite all the contradictions we've seen with this Pope, that he's actually a saint. And, in an early episode, she literally refers to him as a saint. And, when I say saint, I don't mean saint as in the careless use of the word saint. I'm thinking of the literal term for saint as used in the Catholic faith. And to be considered a faith, you have to be able to perform miracles. And, so that kind of makes me think that either she's seen him performing something like a miracle or she believes he can. So we finally get the homily from the Pope, the first address. And the Pope is standing in the balcony, but they can only see his silhouette. And he begins his speech. It's not the one that Cardinal Voiello wrote for him. It's inspired from this child's letter about where to find God. And so the Pope starts his speech and it's going quite well. And, all of a sudden someone from the crowd down at the square says, let us see you, we want to see our Pope, and, all that. And then after a while, someone shines a light on him. And, the Pope just freaks out. He's like, how dare you disrespect your Pope? And, he just goes on and on. You all don't deserve me. And he just storms out, without finishing the speech. So, it was a clear sky. Then all of a sudden it starts to cloud up and rain. And it's kind of weird because if we remember back to the first episode, it's the direct opposite. He's in this dream where he gives it's a very liberal speech. It's non-conservative like the one he actually gives, where he basically loses the crowd with all his just being so liberal in his, in the speech. And, in the sun, actually the clouds open up and the sun shines down. And, of course, in the actual homily, it actually rains. So I just thought it was kind of interesting how in the opening episodes, the scene we get with him giving his first speech, it goes opposite. Everything goes like totally opposite when he actually gives it. So, of course, after this, everyone is devastated. Cardinal Voiello goes, to this handicapped child. He takes care, and, we're not sure what exactly he's doing. At first I think he's going out to meet like an escort or some mistress, because that's kind of how they set the scene up. But the cardinal is praying and asking God forgiveness for about what he needs to do about this new young Pope, as he's making plans to stop, the ruin of what he believes will ultimately be the church under Pope Pius XIII. So, that pretty much concludes episode 2, and we'll move on now to episode 3, and I'll wrap this, all the way up in my final thoughts. And so in episode 3, we finally get the HBO introduction for the young Pope. And HBO, when it comes to introductions for their TV series, they have to be the masters of show intros. I don't think anyone can compete with what HBO puts onto an introduction. And this intro for the young Pope is no exception. He's kind of doing this slow motion walk with these priceless works of art at the Vatican. And there's this comet or meteor, and it's I'm thinking it's possibly a religious symbol because I see them painted a lot in a lot of the artwork that you see, at the Vatican. And basically, they're playing the rock song all along the Watchtower, I think, which was originally performed by Bob Dylan. And the Pope is doing this slow-mo walk, and it's just a real, cool, interesting scene. And then he turns to us in slow motion, he kind of winks at us, almost to suggest, hey, I know something you all don't know. So it's a pretty cool intro. We finally got it, looks like, at episode 3. So it opens up with the Pope explaining to Don Tommaso how he got elected Pope. And it's just this very narcissistic, selfish explanation to how he didn't want anyone to be Pope but him. And he was saying he doesn't care about what anybody thinks. As long as it was him and nobody else, he doesn't care if people think he's a scoundrel. He doesn't, he just doesn't care about anything but being Pope. And, Don Tommaso, this poor guy just looks like he could have a heart attack at any moment. And he's basically saying God didn't illuminate him, but he illuminated himself. So, he's basically saying he's an instrument of his own creation, that all the power hails from him, So again, we get this very contradictory speech. And so you're like, okay, once again, we're confused about what this Pope is exactly out to get done. Exactly, And a few minutes later, he's praying the most sincere prayer to God, saying he didn't mean any of it. That he really needs God more than anything. He can't do anything without God. So it's clear he's trying to mislead the cardinals or the priests, but you're still like, is he crazy or is he battling some conflict within himself? You just don't really know where the show is going with this. They keep you guessing, at this point. So the issue of the Pope's speech from the last episode and the damage it's done to the Catholics around the world as far as the perception of the church is now being addressed. And so they are trying to figure out what to do. So the Pope decides that Sister Mary should hold a conference explaining what happened. So Sister Mary reluctantly agrees, but at the conference, the Pope gives her the words that she's to say. And these words are even more confusing than the words spoken at his homily. He's basically having her start off giving these dozens of titles, the Prince of this, the Bishop of Rome, the blah, blah, blah. And it just makes him appear even more severely narcissistic, And then he's saying in the words he's given this Sister Mary that he's infallible, unlike the rest of us. And, it's just got the press going crazy. So after that, Sister Mary seeks out Cardinal Spencer, who mentored the Pope, for him to come and try to work with he mentored him and, basically, but Cardinal Michael Spencer is unable to get over not being elected Pope, because Sister Mary basically wants him to come in and work with the Pope, try to get everything back in order, and she feels that the Pope really needs him. But Cardinal Spencer is still stuck on the betrayal that he felt was, basically done at the, at the election. I forget what it's called. It's another word when they elect popes, but he's still stuck on that, so he just can't seem to, forgive, Pope Pius. So in the next scene, the woman we got from episode 2 who was married to the Swiss guard is standing in the square where the Pope gave his speech, and she's just standing there every day so the Pope can see her. So the Pope has a priest retrieve her, and it's weird because this priest, he goes to get her and he's asking her if she still has feelings for him. And he's basically alluding to, he's basically indicating that they had a sexual relationship, and, he's groping on her and he's trying to have sex with her right there, So I don't know if she did this with him before her marriage to the Swiss guard or at the same time. It's just this big, mystery, like, what's going on. And in her audience with the Pope, she's basically saying, I liked your speech. And the Pope is like, you have to do more than like it. You have to, basically live it and breathe it and something along those lines. And the Pope, just for some reason, he just passes out and she has to catch him. And we get the Pope, he's in this like vision or dream, and he's trying to catch up with it looks like maybe it's his biological parents. To find out who they are and I guess why they left him at the orphanage. He can't catch up with them. So not exactly sure who his parents were, but it seems very much, on his mind at this point. And so we get this interesting scene, in the end where the priest, who has a really good reputation, and I believe his name is Monsignor Gutierrez, and he and the Pope, they meet in the gardens, often to talk about different things about faith and life. And so he tells Monsignor Gutierrez a story he never told anyone about how he fell in love with this woman on his first trip to California, or his first vacation, and it was right before seminary school. And so he seems very honest with Father Gutierrez about lack of faith and seemingly lack of, of faith in himself as Pope. And so as Monsignor Gutierrez goes back to his apartment, we find that Cardinal Voello is already there and has discovered he has an alcoholic beverage in his room, And so Cardinal Voello is basically suggesting that Monsignor Gutierrez, he may be a drunk, So Monsignor Gutierrez is like, hey, one drink doesn't make me, an alcoholic. So, what's so very interesting about it is, as you're looking at the scene, you're going, wow, is there no one who doesn't have some type of something in the closet at the Vatican? Because, the show props up Monsignor Gutierrez as the only, basically the only, one of the only real true and faith priests. And, we find out, he is basically being suggested he's an alcoholic. So, Monsignor Gutierrez says, well, having one drink doesn't make me an alcoholic. But then Cardinal Voello looks under the bed and he just pulls out crates full of alcohol. It's like a non-stop drinking party under Monsignor Gutierrez's bed. So we get to see in this scene, how Cardinal Voello made it to the top. He has leverage over just about everyone at the Vatican, and he's trying now to get as much leverage and ammunition as he can against the Pope. And basically Cardinal Voello had already set it up like he was going to resign, but it was seen that Cardinal Voello is really still focused on having power and controlling the church to a degree, onto what he feels is right. And so he lets Father Gutierrez or Monsignor Gutierrez basically know, hey, you're going to be found out about your problem unless you tell me everything that the Pope tells you, So basically, Father Gutierrez is kind of in a rock and a hard place. He has to basically now spy on the Pope. So in the closing scene, we get, the Pope again. He's sitting in the gardens with Monsignor Gutierrez, and they're basically, they're confiding in one another. And then Father Gutierrez is basically asking the Pope, you never finished the story about what happened with the girl you fell in love with, and, before you went to seminary school, and, and this, and, that. And so, then the Pope starts to talk about, how maybe he shouldn't have been the Pope, that maybe Cardinal Voello, would have been a better Pope, that he seemed more devout, more right for it, and that his speech was, written, beautiful. The one that Cardinal Voello actually wanted the Pope to give at his homily, everybody pretty much agreed that it was a really well done speech. But then Monsignor Gutierrez tells the Pope, no, Pope, Cardinal Voello is a politician, but you are the Pope. And the scene ends, in the garden. So I really enjoyed this episode. And, as I said earlier, this show is very interesting. And I do like how it goes off in so many directions and keeps you guessing. And so we're now faced with, will Monsignor Gutierrez be the spy for Cardinal Voello, or will he be the good man they thought he was and come clean? So it's a mystery. We don't know. We don't know if the Pope is still playing everyone. We just never know. So anyway, guys, my only prediction is that I think the Pope is probably not telling Monsignor Gutierrez the truth. That's, I think the Pope, how he's been operating throughout this series, that he really does feel he's alone and is his burden alone. And so I don't think he's going to trust anyone at the Vatican, at this point, based on what we've seen of him so far. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed these last 2 episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. And until our next review, take care, guys.